Hey, Andrew.
Hello, welcome. Oh, our speakers here, so I'm going to make sure that they are a co-host. There we go. Hi,
And
Heather.
hi, Andrew. How are you?
Doing all right.
Nice to see
Just
you
trying
again.
to, yeah, likewise. Are you going to need breakout rooms set up or anything like that?
Yes, I was hoping that you could maybe help with that piece.
Absolutely. How do you have an idea of how many per breakout room? Any
I-
other
yeah,
details?
we were hoping between 4 and 5
Got it.
for about a 10-minute section, obviously towards the end. And then do you have access to our slide deck? Will you be able to share those, or should I do that, or what do you think?
I do not have your slide deck in front of me, but I can bring it up and share it if you would like. I'm assuming it's in the shared folder
Yeah, you know what, though, I'm
or
wondering if it's easier if I do it, just because then I know like when to advance the slides more so than you will.
okay. I thought okay, yes, that
Yeah, you won't.
probably
Okay, so
makes
I'll
sense.
do that part, but then I will need your help with the breakout rooms if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Anything else that I can help facilitate, just let me know.
All right, great. Thank you.
And should I make Libby, Jim, and Sarah co-hosts as well? Would that be helpful?
That'd be great in case the wheels fall off. I might need some extra
Right.
support, but I'm not anticipating that. All right, I have 11:10, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started if that makes sense for the group. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I attended the keynote speaker, and I was really sitting with me as I was kind of reflecting on that, how well connected thematically our presentation is in related to, or this discussion we are going to have about supervision practice, in align with the keynote speakers' thoughts about different kinds of talk that are happening in clinical practice settings. So I'm excited to continue that conversation. I'm here with some of my colleagues and we'll introduce them in a little bit. The title really here is just this is the title page, and it kind of sets the tone for what we're going to be talking about, which is our efforts within our program at Cal Poly Humboldt to build culturally sustaining pedagogies in the clinical supervision practice, particularly with our university supervisors. So I know that in supervision, there's a lot of different terms that we relate, sometimes we call them teacher candidates, sometimes we call them student teachers. There's different words for mentor teachers. So if any point people get confused, we're all monitoring the chat as well. So feel free to ask for clarification there, or raise your hand and we can hopefully address some of the questions that you may have. Okay, I'm gonna, so this is kind of what we were planning for our discussion today. We're going to introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about norms for our discussion. We have a short land acknowledgement. I know Lisa did one in the beginning. We'll do our own version of that. I'd like you to, as supervisors, or put on your supervision hat, we're going to have a quick moment of reflection in which you reflect on your own efforts to include DEI language and culturally sustaining practices within your own supervision. And we're looking forward to hearing from you about that. But before we ask you to do that, we'll sort of define what our working definition of culturally sustaining pedagogies is. We're hoping to do a little bit of breakout room discussion, so you have an opportunity to speak in smaller groups about the things that we're presenting. And then we have some resources to share. They're also linked in the STENT agenda, like conference agenda, so you can access them there. And then we'd like to give you an opportunity to share out sort of your small group discussions, and then we'll wrap it up. All right. Okay, so I'll go ahead and introduce everyone. Was I the person who was introducing people? I think I am. Okay, Sarah's giving me a thumbs up, so I'm going to say that I am the person introducing people. So we all teach, these 4 presenters, including myself, we all teach at Cal Poly Humboldt. Currently, I'm here with Dr. Libbi Miller, who is our co-department chair. She specializes in literacy and a bunch of other stuff. Dr. Jim Woglom, who's our co-department chair. His specialty is art education. And then I have Dr. Sara Sterner, who is our liberal studies elementary program lead faculty at Cal Poly Humboldt. And then myself, I'm Dr. Heather Ballinger, and I have this topic has a special place in my heart, as I wrote my dissertation on supervision practices. And so I kind of got all of these faculty on board with my research interests, and I'm taking them along for the ride for the most part. And we've all developed a shared interest in critically evaluating our current supervision practices at Cal Poly Humboldt, and then our various efforts to improve upon them. It's kind of what we're talking about a little bit today.
Thanks, Heather, and thanks for the great introduction. I love watching this team be introduced because I get to work with these people, and I've got to work with them over the last several years, and it's really just a very cool team of teacher educators who also, I was thinking, we all regularly supervise and struggle with these topics as teacher educators. So thank you for that introduction. So just a quick land acknowledgement to think about the land that Cal Poly Humboldt is situated on. If you've ever visited us, we're in the far north of California, almost to Oregon, in the land of redwoods and fog and the ocean. But we are located on the present and ancestral homeland of the unceded territory of the Wiyot tribe. Tribes and nations in Humboldt County include Hoopa, Karuk, Matol, Talawa, Walikee, Wiyot, and Yurok. And we make this land acknowledgement in recognition that our words must be matched by our actions and approach. So it's meaningless just to recognize that we're on this unceded present and ancestral land, but we have to make commitments and have actions that match that. So in recognition of our place on unceded land, we are committed to building culturally sustaining pedagogies into our practice and work as teacher educators. And this includes our work with teacher candidates in the classroom through supervision.
Thanks, Libby. So just as we start our conversations today, we want to take a look at some suggested workshop norms. Just some sort of ground rules for how we will work with each other and consider some of the topics we're discussing together today. The first one we'd like to suggest is staying engaged. I know we're all on our computers and we're very busy educators. I have an email thing that's piling up as we speak. But I think these topics are important. It would be behoove us to try to be together and think through these topics in an engaged way through our time together today. In that same way, thinking about speaking your truth. I mean, I think that there's a lot of stuff we're going to present and talk about today that has multiple avenues of thinking and caring and being in relationship to. So be comfortable in speaking to who and how you are in relationship to some of the topics that we are going to discuss. And then naturally that's going to lead to some discomfort, being able to talk about some of the rich and often complex and problematic things that go on in our supervision is going to lead to some feeling weird and I don't know, awkward sometimes. But sometimes we need to have those feelings in order to move through them and pass them and learn from them. So be open to experiencing that discomfort. And then finally, one of the things that always makes me uncomfortable is that we're not going to solve any of the things that we're working on looking at today. We're going to raise ideas and try to delve into them critically together, but we're not going to achieve closure and develop the most diverse, equitable, and inclusive classrooms in the world immediately halfway through this session. So we have to anticipate that this is an ongoing and iterative process that's going to continue happening over time, and that this is one step in a continuous growth process that we're all engaged with. So expecting and accepting that we're not going to come to a decisive end today. Thank you so much. Oh, and then finally, just looking to, in keeping with that, this this quote from Paulo Freire. Freire says that knowledge emerges only through invention and reinvention, through the restless, impatient, continuing, hopeful inquiry humans beings pursue in the world, with the world and with each other. And this is kind of summing up some of those intentions we had earlier, in that, we need to be constantly in this churning process of realizing and making meaning and changing who we are so that we can make change with our candidates in the field of education. So, just constantly engaging with this process is something I'd like us to invite us to think about.
All right. So a little bit of background on just how we got started in this work. For the past 3 years, this group that I just introduced you all to, we have been working with a grant through the CSU Chancellor's Office. And we started In the first year, kind of looking at our admissions process, this grant work was funded as a way to look into how to diversify and make our program more equitable. So we took a look at the admissions process. We broke down many of our systems related to enrollment and retention. And then from that work, kind of in year 2, and then most recently in this 3rd year of the work that we've been doing through this grant, is we have been looking at supervision, specifically the role of the university supervisor in developing equitable, culturally sustaining related conversations in the fieldwork setting. And so in doing that, we've taken a close look at our fieldwork documents to see the types of fieldwork feedback that has been given to our candidates. And then also we've been working to prepare our supervisors to have conversations related to culturally sustaining practices in the fieldwork classroom. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of our successes and a little bit of our challenges related to that work that we've been working on for the past 3 years through this grant work that we've been doing.
Okay, so we've started kind of sharing our path and our journey, and now we want to kind of have that come and connect to your journey and where you're at and thinking about your practices. So we're going to ask for you to take a moment to do some reflection and do a quick write, or just take a moment and think through, and we'll ask you to consider, in your role as a supervisor, in which areas do you emphasize and feel most comfortable providing coaching and feedback. And if you have time in this couple of moments of thinking through, consider why that area feels the most comfortable to you. And we've pulled out these 3 kind of focal areas: instructional practices, social and emotional support in the classroom, and culturally sustaining practices. So if you just take a moment, we'll do about 2 minutes to think through, jot down some ideas, and then we'll check back in with you. How does that feel for reflective time? I'm checking to see if a few people are still writing, but I think we're probably good. We would love for you to share, if you feel comfortable, just which number, 1, 2, or 3, that you focused on for your reflection and that you thought about, felt the most comfortable. And if you could just toss that 1, 2, or 3 into the chat, just kind of to share kind of where our group thinking is in this process, we would really appreciate that. Thank you. It looks like we really have some collective shared comfort in 1 and 2, which is great that we're kind of all on the same page here. And really, that's the work that we're going to do today. Continue thinking about that.
Thank you, Sarah. Just to share, also, we conducted the same survey with our supervisors, and we found really similar results, where with a lot of comfort in the first 2 areas, and then a lot of awareness that culturally sustaining pedagogies and practices are important, but also some figuring out of how do we make sure that this is incorporated. It's key to everything that we do, but how do we make sure as supervisors that we're giving a feedback in these areas? And supporting our candidates. I'm going to take just a minute to really dive into the definition, our working definition of culturally sustaining pedagogies, and to think about how it is an evolution from culturally relevant practices and Ladson-Billings work that we've been really drawing upon for a number of years. I'd like to note that we're using the plural form of the term pedagogies purposefully because it's not one pedagogy or one practice, but it's multiple practices and pedagogies that come together to define culturally sustaining practices. The term culturally sustaining pedagogies, or CSP, is coined originally by Django Paris in 2012, but it was further explored through Paris's work with Sami Alim through their dialogue and reflection about their work as educators and their experiences as students. Kelly Pizzio and her colleagues define CSP as teaching that helps culturally and linguistically diverse students develop and maintain cultural competence, academic success, and critical consciousness. The term maintain is a really important aspect of this definition, as well as the concept of critical consciousness, which Freire defines as the ability or agency to intervene in reality in order to change it. So that critical consciousness is really key in the definition of culturally sustaining pedagogies. From Alim and Paris, culturally sustaining pedagogies is pedagogy that seeks to perpetuate and foster to sustain linguistic, literature, and cultural pluralism as part of schooling for positive social transformation. So there we see that social transformation coming again, along with the critical consciousness. In Alim and Paris's definition, I want to highlight just a few words to stick with us. The first is to sustain, which is to strengthen, to support, to make robust. The next is pluralism, referring to the different ways of knowing, being, coexisting, thriving, specifically in language, literature, and culture. And then positive social transformation, which again is linked to the idea of critical consciousness and the overarching goal of this work to being in transforming society. And Heather, could you take me to the next slide? So as I've mentioned, that CSP differs from culturally relevant pedagogy, and it really came out of a loving critique of Ladson-Billings' work and other asset-oriented pedagogies like Moll and Gonzalez's work around funds of knowledge. So it's an evolution of these foundational works and really relies on them to progress this practice. Now, Alim and Paris emphasize that this is a loving critique of these asset-oriented pedagogies and that these lay the foundation for culturally sustaining practices. And the critique comes out of the idea that asset-oriented pedagogies fall short of making sustained social change because they neglect to focus on the critical consciousness and the decentering of the white dominant discourse that is pervasive in education and society in general. Ladson Billings herself suggests that culturally relevant pedagogy is good and valuable work, but in order to make that sustained social change, we need to continue to push it forward, moving into from being culturally relevant into being culturally sustaining.
Sorry, I was on mute. There are also state requirements in relationship to teacher preparation in the TPEs that speak to a number of these ideas directly, and thinking about how not just those conceptual and beyond theoretical, the things we care about for our candidates are also required as part of their preparation journey and process. So I'd like to point to TPEs 2.2 and 4.1. These are two that we focused on in our research and in our practices with our supervisors. But the first one is in TPE 2.2, candidates are expected to create learning environments, i.e. traditional, blended, and online, that promote productive student learning, encourage positive interactions among students, reflect diversity and multiple perspectives, and are culturally responsive. So there's in this TPE, an encouragement for our candidates to think about how they can create a inclusive and equitable space in their classrooms. And then in TPE 4.1, there's again a requirement to locate and apply information about students' current academic status, content and standards related learning needs and goals, assessment data, language proficiency status, and cultural background for both short-term and long-term instructional planning purposes. So this speaks to that culturally responsive and culturally sustaining practices we're looking at, and that we need to encourage our candidates who are being prepared to be teachers to be thoughtfully responsive to the individual needs of each of the students in their respective classrooms, to be aware of what those academic and cultural needs are, and to responsively and iteratively engage with each of those students based on those needs. So these kind of encapsulate how our state requirements are tied to those culturally sustaining practices we just discussed. I'd like to point towards, oh, thank you, Sarah. Sarah's just put those TPs in the chat. We're going to have an opportunity to get into breakout rooms and talk about how those TPEs and some of those culturally sustaining practices play out in our own experiences as supervisors. So our questions to discuss are, what are your initial understandings of those TPs I just pointed out? In what ways can we guide our candidates to view these TPEs through a culturally sustaining lens? And this has been not only the focus of our research for the last couple of years, but it's also been a really challenging conversation. Is how do we take those? I mean, there's sort of a legalese tone to these two terms, and how do we break that down in a way that it is actionable and that it can respond to the needs, that we can encourage our candidates to respond to the personal needs of the students they're engaging with. Third, what challenges and successes have we as supervisors experienced in providing support for candidates from a culturally sustaining lens? How have we been successful or had missteps in our journey to engage with these ideas? And then finally, what questions do you have for our larger group about how to infuse social justice and critical reflection via the TPEs that are listed here? I'm going to copy these questions so we can have them in the chat. But I believe we're going to break into groups of 5 and talk for about 10 minutes about the ideas. Am I correct in that, Heather?
That's correct. And I think Andrew's going to set up those breakout rooms now for us to discuss these. We might not get to all of them in the time that we have, but we're hoping for about 10 minutes. Do we end at 11:50, Andrew?
I
think we have till 12.
It's 12:10, I believe.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so I think we have 10 minutes for discussion, and then we'll have an opportunity to get back and ask questions and share out. Are there any questions before we go into the breakout rooms about about the discussions or this TPE focused conversation we're asking you to all embark on? Okay, thank you.
Very much.
Should I go ahead and open those rooms then?
Yes, thank you, Andrew.
And I think if y'all want, you should be able to join any room. I'll hang out in the main room, but yeah, just let me know when you want me to bring everyone back and we can
Thank
do
you.
that.
Okay, I'll set a timer. I was wondering, is there a I don't know if you can put a timer in the breakout room so they can see it. I think it might be too late, but that's okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think
on.
it is too late. I can't
see-
remember how to do that in the first place.
Okay, breakout room. Oh, I see it. Oh, so I can move myself here.
I'll send out a broadcast
Yeah.
periodically to let them know how much
Okay.
time is left.
I just got a message. Well, one of my old students from Fresno State is in here. I got a message from her, but for all of us, I got a message from a man named David Bills, and he says he's a 1982 graduate from HSU and earned his credential here. And his father-in-law was the athletic director and worked in the education department. And he's glad to see the good work being done here. He was a high school administrator and teacher for 31 years, and now he's a supervisor at Jessup University.
Oh, cute.
He says, "Go Jacks."
I always get like a couple DMs about my background, and I'm like trying to spread the word about Sassy Sasquatch over here.
Maybe you could edit it and give her a name tag.
Right? I think they need a name tag. I want to give them I want like a little vest, like a little plaid vest, maybe a backpack. I could go on.
Yeah.
There's a little rat type thing called the Martin that there's like a bunch of folks trying to.
Is it local to Humboldt? I just want it to be something local that's not just chopping down trees.
No, yeah, it's a local. It's not really a rat. It's more like a weasel. It's real cute, but there's a Martin contingent.
I'm here for it.
I'm here for the Martin. I like a Martin.
Mhm.
I was just having someone just pitched it to me the other day, and
I like that anybody watching this recording is getting this bonus content.
Yeah.
I forgot. I'm gonna check in this group room. I'm gonna go into room 4 and see how people are doing.
Okay, I'll find a room too.
Okay.
That's this. Yeah. Okay. It's gonna stop my screen share.
I'll go one fat.
Hi, Laura. I'm going to go ahead and assign you to a breakout room. I think that folks are talking about this. I'm going to post it in the chat. Okay.
Sometimes when the teacher comes in, it sort of ends the conversation. They're like, is that
Yeah.
right? I'm like, there's no wrong. We're just
Yeah.
talking.
I've been on both ends of that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I teach online for my methods course, and it totally is that, like, all conversation stops when I step in. I'm like, can I just, sometimes turning off my video helps. It's like I'm less of a
Mm.
intrusion, but anyways. Did you all get enough people to create links for tomorrow? I know Lisa was looking for people.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
good.
we have a facilitator for everything.
Okay, good. And did that article that we work on ever get published?
The book chapter.
Yeah.
I think the book is supposed to be coming out at the end of the summer, if I remember
Okay.
correctly.
I'm sure Lisa will send us an update. I just hadn't heard
Yeah.
about it for a while. I know things like that like take a long time to kind of process through.
Yeah. It's my first publication.
Are you
Exciting.
finished with your dissertation yet? Or you're going through the PhD?
No. No, I advanced to candidacy like 2 months ago. So I'm starting my dissertation work.
Oh, congratulations. That's great. Are you doing it on
Yeah.
supervision also?
Yep.
Cool. Cool.
Yep.
I have 2 minutes on my thing.
Oh, right. Sorry. I'm supposed to.
It's okay. Honestly, based on the 2 breakout rooms that I went to, we could probably shut them down and recalibrate for a share out.
Oh, okay. I just sent the message saying 2 more minutes, but okay. Yeah, sorry. Having to do a lot of tech support essentially.
Who's your main advisor?
Rebecca Ambrose.
Oh, yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
Is Margarita Jimenez Silva still there?
Yeah, she is my secondary advisor actually.
Oh, good. She'll help you get that done. She was my main person. She really helped.
Yeah, I haven't had a whole lot of interaction with her, but I think that's going to change going forward. All right. Do you want me to start closing the rooms?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
I'll get the slides back on.
My group was still in the throes of deep conversation, really good conversation, which is a good sign. I hate that they had to leave.
I got to hear some really awesome conversations. Thank you all for engaging with those questions and those concepts. I think now we're going to transition into a share out for about 10 minutes. And our incredible colleague, Sara, is going to facilitate that.
And again, thank you everyone for engaging in this complex conversation. The breakout room I was in just was really pulling at some important knots as we consider challenges and strengths of this work. So thank you all very much. I think we would love to have, if someone from each breakout room would just share a takeaway, and then we will open it up for a more general conversation to be had kind of across, as much as Zoom can facilitate that. So if I don't even, if you remember what breakout room you were in, I know that doesn't always work, or if someone just feels comfortable jumping in, we'll start there.
In our session, we discussed, there was a couple of us that have the TPA class. Our university offers a TPA class for students that are required for them to take it an hour a week. Majority of the supervisors go over their TPA information. So I think we hit and cover a lot of the stuff that's on here. So we're pretty comfortable for the ones that are in my group.
Thank you.
No worries.
I can share for group 2. I remember we were team 2. I would say that the first thing that we really talked about is how important it is that these concepts are just infused throughout their programs, so that it's not, when they hit student teaching, it's not a surprise or a shock or any element, that it just needs to be part of what they're doing from the beginning to the end, and then through into their career, obviously. And then the other element that really came up was how recognizing as a challenge is that we don't have necessarily the control of the environment they're walking into, and the level or types of support they have for these same concepts when they are walking into those classrooms. So whether it's situations where schools or districts or even cooperating teachers have kind of said things need to happen in a certain way, and they are kind of faced with that element if the curriculum doesn't really feel supportive, and just working through those pieces, guiding them through how they can utilize that is through practice and guidance. So those were really kind of the 2 big things that we talked about.
Nice, thank you. And we have a question in the chat. I'll bring it back around after we've heard from all the groups, but thank you for sharing that. Group 3 or someone else, if you feel comfortable.
I can go next. I'm not I want to say we're group 5, but I'm not sure. It's been a couple of groups now, but one of the takeaways that we talked about was really the individualized component that's needed to be able to address the home component, the cultural component, the more of a holistic approach to understanding a student, and how rapport building is so important for that. And it can be difficult for student teachers, first off, because large class sizes, and not really having an understanding of how to navigate that. And the more confident a student teacher is with that, the more confidence they'll inspire in a student that they have under their wing.
Thank you. Would someone else like to share from their group?
I think I can share for group 3 because I kind of dominated. I was talking about my first grade class that I had that had no Caucasian students, 28 kids, 2 Hispanic, the rest were Asian from different parts of Asia. Amazing job that these 2 the teacher and the student teacher did, handling the variants. We had English, no English. We had little, parent parental education to high parental education. And it was working with the parents and teaching the children with respect and love that I was very, very impressed with this classroom. And I'm going to have the same mentor teacher this fall. I'm looking forward to another first grade group with her. Very effective.
I'd just like to say something that came up with you mentioning the fall. I think for the student teachers who go in January for the spring, I think it's a double challenge because their teacher already knows the students. And so getting to know them again, for them to learn what the students are and to break through the shell that maybe the mentor teacher has built, I think makes it doubly challenging for them. And we need a lot of conversations in our seminars or in our debriefing sessions to make sure that they can build what they know should be there, if it is there or if it's not, to introduce it.
Yeah, our program has beginning student teachers one semester, and then they finish the same with the same mentor as an advanced. But if it's like this fall is a student teacher from the spring to the fall, it's not fall to spring, this particular one I'm going to see. But yeah, they do have to do 2 semesters.
Thank you. Magana, would you like to go next?
I don't know. I might be group 4, but
Okay.
I was just going to say, I know one thing. I think we talked a bit about our being supervisors, how that fits into the whole realm of things, because you also have PDs at school, mentor teachers, and, and seminar and other classes and courses too. And then additionally, with having a culturally relevant, sustaining critical theory, maybe not critical race theory, equity, and all these type of things. What is it meaning to all of us in any position, but supervisors, so that, what's the common understanding too, that you're having dialogue with, or that you are in discussion with the TPEs, that you have some understanding, because it's broad.
Thank you, Edwina. And I know that you asked if the first group would be more elaborating on how they feel comfortable with the TPEs and that process. I want to open it up to just for other conversations, but just circling back to the chat to see, we do have time to dig in a little bit more and share. Heather, I'm seeing a good. Sorry. Okay. Would anybody else like to come into the conversation, or if group 1 would like to elaborate a bit?
Was that me, group 1? I mean, they wanted to, I'm not sure. Okay, well, since we're here and we're comfortable, I'm an African-American female. I immediately tell my students, when I come to see you, you need to know your classroom. Someone brought up that there were 2 Caucasian students. We need to look at that. Sometimes there's only 2 white kids in the classroom. How do we support them? There's classes where I think I went to Chino Hills and there probably was 1 African-American, maybe 2 Caucasian, and the rest were all Filipinos. How do we support those kids? And I am very comfortable in telling students when we meet, this is what I do not want to see my African-American boys sitting in the back with the earphones on. We need to be honest. When your administrator walks into the room, how are you supporting those students? If I walk into a room as administrator, they have their headphones on, listen to the music, not engaged with the classroom, are we just going to ignore it? I said, how do you deal with that? And this part of it is classroom management. I focus a lot when we meet. I meet weekly with my student teachers as a class, because I want to make sure I don't miss anything, or if they have questions for me, or they don't know how to do something in classroom and they're afraid to ask their mentor teacher, I'm the one that they come to. So I always tell them, feel comfortable, ask me anything. And because you didn't pay all this money not to get a job. So I'm very upfront with them. I don't know if that helped the person who asked that question, but we have to be comfortable in our own skin, and they need us to give them the knowledge to be successful, because we don't want them to get fired or quit in the first 2 years of student teaching. I mean, it's like, I give up, these kids are bad. I understand the pandemic caused, I went to a school last semester and all these kids is walking around in pajamas. I was like, what happened to class? You going home wearing pajamas when I was at schools, but a lot of the kids are wearing pajamas, and I'm thinking, okay, that's not acceptable. How are we teaching them for the real world if we allow them to walk around in their pajamas? So I'm very comfortable dealing with that. Very comfortable.
I think this raises a really great point around comfort, and it's something that we've seen in a number of our conversations with supervisors, is a lot of folks are stalling on these topics and these concepts because they just feel like awkward about them. Like, I don't want to address them because I feel kind of weird talking about it to our candidates. And I think that you speak to a really important point, is that to some extent we have to model comfort. We have to say, like, this is potentially tough interpersonal stuff, but it's really important to the health and safety of our students. So, to some extent we have to pretend, or pretend if we're pretending, we have to be the person in the room who's confidently saying, this is the conversation we need to have right now. So I think that's I don't know. Thank you for that. That was.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a valid point. We have to be honest with them sometimes. If we see a situation, I work in the area of science and math. So in science, if safety is threatened in any way, that's the end of your science class. So I have to be honest about that kind of thing. So if I don't put it out to them when I see it happen, then I'm doing a disservice as well. So this happens also with other kinds of situations with the students. But I agree that some element of honesty done well, not denigrating, not saying anything negative. I try never to say anything negative, eliciting from them, did they see that? What do they think about it now that they are aware of it? Kind of pushing that, kind of get it from them, how they feel about this safety violation, that resolves a lot. And it is an important thing to do.
I never say anything while I'm in the classroom with them. We discuss it, I will usually text them and ask them to give me a call. And I talk to them one-on-one. How do you think that student felt? Teacher allowed the kids to call a kid a 0 in the classroom, and the whole class laughed. Oh, he's lower than an F. Okay, you just killed that child's self-esteem. And even if he is lower than the F in a grade, do we allow other kids to tell that out loud to everybody? And they said it in front of me like it was no big deal, and nobody addressed it. I even addressed when they use racial slurs in the classroom. How often do you gonna let that go?
Right.
So yeah, we do have to be honest. We want them to keep the job. You need to say, okay, this would happen. I think you need to address the way you address kids. That you need to know their name. So
I have a question in the chat from Aaron, and then Edwina, you had your hand up.
It's about Aaron. That's it. I just want to understand the question.
Great.
Understand that question better. Okay.
Aaron was asking, I'm super curious how folks, supervisors, discuss and make space for the identities of candidates. And I think this is another thing that's a really important point in a lot of the conversations we've been having, is how do we consider the positionality of our individual candidates in relationship to their classrooms and their relative interpersonal comfort and space there. So I'd love to, sorry, I hit unmute too early. I'd love to open that up to folks. How do we help our candidates consider their positionality in relationship to their classrooms?
So with my student candidates, a lot of they're all working in the special ed field. And a lot of them get into that field because they've had family members that have been involved in that to some degree. They have a brother with ADHD, with emotional disturbance, things like that. And so being able to have them reflect on what that looked like in their own lives growing up with this family member and how that applies to their students now. And that's why they're doing this, because they want to give back. They are these wounded healers. And so having that kind of narrative really helps to provide a more compassionate lens, which really, in my opinion, helps prevent burnout.
We had an experience with one of my former students who's now 24. He's autistic, and he is a math biology major. And we found a classroom for him at my former school with a teacher, a math teacher who has a brother with autism. And the university supervisor had a child with autism. And it was a very successful environment for Matthew. He has, he's high functioning, but he's socially inept, as you would expect. But he has maintained his student. He finished his program, and he has been a successful substitute teacher while waiting to get a position in the district. So that was a collaborative placement.
I like too what Karen said in the chat is just this idea of, and I'm kind of reflecting on our own practice here within our program, is encouraging, and I think our supervisors naturally do this, but encouraging a space for the teacher candidates and the supervisors to get to know each other and to share their funds of knowledge that they bring to the classroom sort of initially. So that kind of planted a seed of thought there in ways that as a program we could potentially facilitate that better to maybe build a stronger bond from the beginning. So it's maybe less of a like, I'm the supervisor, I know what's best, or you're the mentor or teacher, you know what's best, and have it more of a collaborative understanding of identities and places of practice. I'm going to go ahead and transition. This has been a great conversation, but we're running short on time. And I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to just kind of highlight some of our resources. We have some equity-oriented conversation starters that we tried to or that we used with our supervisors that are in the resource link. Can one of my other co-hosts put the link into the chat? It's also in the resources if you click on the but these equity-oriented conversation starters we used with our supervisors after getting feedback that many of them were unsure. They didn't know how to start having equity-oriented conversations with their teacher candidates at the field site placement level. And so we shared those with them, and we now share them with you to if those feel useful for you, please use them. And also if you have questions about them, we can also answer those here. We also have a book list of we're calling the DEI book list, but I teach history, social science methods across programs within Cal Poly in the School of Ed. And then we as a group have put together these lists of books that we've provided to mentor teachers through grant funding as sort of a thank you, but also to provide context for some of the historical context and social context on the issues that we see in schools that are related to many of the conversations that we had today. If you have any resources or anything additional that you would like to share with us, on the final slide of the presentation, which is slide 15, are our email addresses. And I would love to continue this conversation with any of you all that would like to reach out if some things sit with you that you would like to continue talking about. Also, in the last sort of 6 minutes that we have, we can choose to stay in the main room, but I've also asked that Andrew open up the groups that you were previously in if you want to spend sort of the last 5 minutes checking back in with your group and continuing to make those connections that you made there. And I also want to thank you all for participating in these challenging conversations and for all of the really important work that you do. And take good care.
The work that you do.
Did I open up those rooms again? Oh, there we go.
Thanks.
Heather, it looks like we have one person, Mary Shelton, in a room by herself. Should I move her to another room?
Yeah, sure. Good idea.
I'll move her to 5. There we go.
Can I ask what the alphabet soup DEI is? I'm trying to work that one out.
DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you.
There's a lot of acronyms in education. It's kind of silly.
I
agree.
know. The
There are
soup is
some-
very thick.
The soup is so thick.
There are some campuses that call it EDI. So then that always throws me too. So the soup can also just be a mix in the individual bowl.
I had meant to put links for the next set of sessions in the chat. Were you all planning on bringing everyone back when before the session ends? Okay. Well, for those of you in here.
Yeah, I think you could just time it out, Andrew, in like 2 minutes.
I really enjoyed joining the breakout room. The supervisors had so much to share and just really rich stories and experiences. It made me think about our supervisor luncheon that we're planning coming up to prep for the school year, and wondering if some of these conversation starters might be useful there too.
Mm-hmm. Someone was telling me the Davis program has like it's a mentor teacher meeting that they host once a year, but they have like little scenarios that they put on the table so that they can, as a group, sort of like talk out, like an example that I was just thinking about, like, I don't know, you walk into a classroom and all students are wearing pajamas, like would you address it? Would you address it? Like, what are the issues that would come up regarding that? Or even more, like you overhear a student using a racial slur as you walk into the classroom. So, like, what's your process for that? What's the protocol for that? I think it's a good way of honoring the experiences of, because like all the participants in this group said, is like, most of us as supervisors feel very comfortable in instructional practices. The other two are the more nuanced and challenging and sort of like evolving pieces. So I think that those are the ones that we need to investigate a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah. I really remember you and I worked through it when I walked in and the student was wearing a shirt, a violent image that was advocating violence, and it was it's those situations where it's, okay, who do I talk to? What do we do? How do I talk? I'm having a conversation with the student teacher, but also this has to happen with the school, and it has to happen immediately. And how do we navigate that?
Yeah, then in that case, it's like, and then what do you do when it's brushed off by the administration? Like, what are next steps after that? Is that something that you pursue farther? And if you wanted to pursue it farther, how would you do that? So.
I like that idea.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for hosting us and for including us in your excellent conference times.
Thank you all.
Of course. Thank you all. I'm going to close the rooms and bring everyone back so they have the links for
Okay.
after lunch.
Sounds good.
And we can wave goodbye to everyone too.
Third one, it was going to be B.
All right, I think we were just going to wrap it up and make sure that everyone sees the short break that's happening from 12:10 to 12:40, and then Andrew put the links for the 2 following sessions after the lunch recording. And thank you all again, and have a great rest of your conference. I look forward to seeing you all in different conversations.
Are we supposed to leave this and then come back onto the program again?
Yeah, we're going to have a short break from
Yeah.
12:10 to 12:40, and then sessions 3A and 3B will start at 12:40.
So will this all be left open? Because I had to reboot last time. I had to go back to the program and start over. I guess I'll just leave it.
The Zoom call, it'll be a different Zoom call for the next set of sessions. So I'm gonna close this one out once
Okay,
folks
I'll go back to
have
the
left.
original program. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
Mhm. Yeah, sure thing.